Galloway. I'm the leader of the Alliance for Unity, but this is the last weekly broadcast I personally will be doing for a few weeks because of other professional commitments. The good news is that we are building a stable of parliamentary candidates that are really thoroughbreds. And I can't tell you right now, but I have been talking for the last day or two to a very prominent, twice Labour Party parliamentary candidate about joining us on the lists for the Holyrood elections in May. And that's important. A significant Labour figure, together with myself, a long-time Labour Member of Parliament, the youngest ever chairman of the Labour Party in Scotland, a figure known to be on the left of politics, to be joined by another significant Labour figure is going to be a bit of a red letter day for us, if you'll pardon my pun. And that prominent figure should be unveiled over the next week or so. And that candidate will join several others already announced of the highest intellectual caliber, of the highest integrity figures, important figures in their own professions, in the law, in medicine, in academia, are beginning now to form up as our next May. And should the other parties fail to negotiate a joint list with us for the regional elections, then we at least will be able to say that we tried until we had no more breath left to try further to unite all of the pro-Britain parties in this election, and that we are forced to contend with other lists. We'll be able to say, actually, if you vote for us, you'll get a better unionist in Holyrood. A unionist that will not treat the place as a club, a kind of white heather club, where you're happy to be second or third. You're happy to lose every vote, but the wages are good, and the expenses are good, and the office accommodation and staffing costs are good. The travel expenses are good, and you get a big round of applause when you finally retire, as well as a golden handshake to go with it. That's not what we are about. We're not in it for the beer. In my case, I don't even drink beer or any other alcoholic beverage. Neither am I in it for the wages. Trust me, being in Holyrood would require a very, very substantial cut in my earnings. Neither am I in it for profile, as a few people insultingly said in the week. I have plenty of profile. I presented a global television radio show last night to almost 1 million people live right across the globe. I'm on television 7 days a week. I have 5 children under the age of 13. I've just moved house to Scotland. I have plenty of other things to do. I'm not in this for me. And my fellow candidates are not in it for themselves either. We don't want to be in their club. We don't want to be in Nicola Sturgeon's White Heather Club. We're not there for the depth of the upholstery and the comfort of the carpets. We're there to fight for Scotland as part of the Union, Scotland as part of Britain, sharing the challenges and sharing the benefits that face and have accrued to our country over the more than 3 centuries that we have been together. We will never agree that the people of Newcastle or Liverpool or Manchester or Birmingham or the Southwest or South Wales, we will never agree that these people are somehow foreign to us. Still less that they are the foreigners, and we should link up with people from Slovenia and Slovakia and Bulgaria in so-called European Union that will cost us the bleeding of our eyes economically, where we ever, and we may not, be able to join that European Union. We're fighting for Britain. We are Team GB. We believe in Britain. We believe in our engineers and our scientists and our technologists and our playwrights and our poets, our writers. We believe in all of the inherent, intrinsic greatness of the people of this island, with its language, which still rings around the world more than any other language. On that point, I made the point on Twitter earlier. Not so long ago, Scottish people were well known to both speak and write the English language better than anybody else on this island. And one of the consequences, one of the least important, but nonetheless interesting, one of the consequences of this never-ending, this poisonous nationalist discourse which runs through every part of Scottish life now, is that for nationalists at least, and in the media echo chamber, speaking in the language of the meanest streets, where no swear word or five is left unused, where guttural, feral language is substituted for the proper English for which we were once famous, has become the norm. Certainly on social media, I receive, as you can imagine, not dozens, sometimes hundreds of hate mail on Twitter and on Facebook and on email even. Really vicious stuff. But leaving aside the viciousness, the most extraordinary thing about it is the low cultural and educational level that it betrays. Hardly any of the hate mail I get is written in proper English. It's not even written in proper Scots. It is ill-written, illiterate, vile, foul. And I cannot separate that from the degradation of Scottish public life that the SNP is responsible for. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the course of my address this evening. But first, the good news that the petition we launched demanding the resignation of Nicola Sturgeon as Scotland's First Minister has now raced past 30,000 signatures in rapid, quick time. And I want to encourage each and every one of you, if you have not already done so, both to sign it yourself and to actively canvass others for their signature on this petition. I've been involved in a lot of campaigns demanding the resignation of this person or that. Sometimes I'm even successful. In the case of Tony Blair, quite splendidly so, both from his position as Prime Minister and later as the laughingly described peace envoy to the Middle East. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. In this occasion, I can say without fear of contradiction, there has never been a more powerful case for someone's resignation than there is for the resignation of Nicola Sturgeon. Not only is she presiding over cataclysmic failures right across the policy and administrative spectrum. But even in presiding over her own party, now fighting like ferrets in a sack over parliamentary nominations, I hope, turn out in any case to be fruitless. The course of nepotism in the SNP seems to know no bounds. Even Hamza is putting up his now wife for a parliamentary candidate. It seems like husband and wife, father and son, sometimes father, son and daughter, sometimes mother, son and daughter is all the rage in the SNP. If not as candidates, then as highly paid assistants on the public payroll to their parents or their spouses. So there's gravy in the trough, and they are all desperately trying to get their snouts into that trough, and they don't care who knows it. They don't care which colleague's back they have to publicly stab, which rule they have to rig, which National Executive Committee they have to fix in order to get this person in or keep that person out. It is a total bun fight at the OK Corral, the Yes Corral, and it's an unedifying sight on top of all the other unedifying sights that will come to be emblematic of the SNP's long and hopefully fading a period of government. Let me start with the most important thing, because thousands of lives have been lost. For months, the lie, and I call it a lie advisedly, the lie that Scotland was on the verge of eliminating the coronavirus from our country, which was a dog whistle that sent the most feral elements of the SNP down to the border and to the railway stations and the airports with their vile racist banners, shouting abuse at travellers arriving from England. I was about to say English travellers, but of course I was one of them. They had no way of knowing who was in the cars. They just knew that they were not welcome. And this dog whistle was the lie that Scotland was uniquely placed because of the Mephistophelian genius, perhaps, of Nicola Sturgeon, or could it be Jean Freeman, was somehow on the verge of killing the coronavirus. It was a lie. It was a lie that Scotland was doing 3 times, or was it 5 times, better than the authorities in other parts of the United Kingdom were doing. This was always false. It was a figure invented and the truth concealed, just like the Nike conference truth was concealed. Just like the government's role in the sending of our grandmothers and our grandfathers to die in the care home carnage, for which the SNP bear absolute responsibility. They can't, although they tried to, blame it on the care homes, blame it on the doctors, blame it on the advisors. Thanks to that newly great investigative journalistic organ, the Sunday Post, we know the truth that the authorities in the care homes and in the NHS were acting on ministerial orders, on Nicola Sturgeon's government's orders. And on top now of the care home carnage, which hasn't gone away, by the way, our care homes are still completely under-equipped, underarmed to deal with a new spike of coronavirus infections. Our elderly effectively being held in solitary confinement as a result of these series of blunders, some would say crimes, that have been committed in relation to COVID-19. On top of the disaster of the care homes, we now have thousands of students who should never have been asked to come back or to come to our universities, and who were not tested, who were not tracked or traced, because that capacity doesn't exist, despite all the money that has been spent on it. And are now, although some of them are breaking out like inmates of a prison camp, are now incarcerated in little boxes for which they're paying through the nose, forbidden to leave, even to go home, perhaps even to go home for Christmas, although the SNP are now scurrying to deal with the second scandal in a row involving our young people that they have been responsible for. The earlier one being, of course, the exam failure of all time, the complete farce of the exam results of just a few months ago. One scandal comes past so fast, followed by another. It's actually difficult to keep track of them, and definitely in a broadcast this length, impossible to do all of them justice. But the whole world can see the mess that Nicola Sturgeon and her government have made of the coronavirus crisis in Scotland. Glasgow, my old stamping ground, and oh, how it's been allowed to decline. Oh, how it's been made to decline under SNP rule, is now the worst place in the whole of the United Kingdom for coronavirus infections. And this was clear at least a week, closer to 2 weeks ago. And if decisive action had been taken to lock down Glasgow, then the whole of Scotland would now not be facing the lockdown measures that we are. And Glasgow could have been on top of what is a still rising wave of infection. If Glasgow had been treated like Aberdeen was treated, and decisive action taken, we might not be in this mess. And we know the reason why Glasgow was not treated like Aberdeen. Because the SNP cannot face the wrath of the SNP support in a city like Glasgow. The turning away from them of tens of thousands of voters in the city of Glasgow. So they gambled that it would not get markedly worse, but markedly worse, disastrously worse, it has gotten. The ferries fiasco, the sick children's hospital, the scandal of MacKay, still picking up thousands of pounds a month for a job he hasn't done for 6 months. No sick note, no attendance at work, just trousering the money and doing God knows what. I daren't think what MacKay does all day. I could go on. The Jean Freeman scandal, the John Swinney scandal, the number of hashtags demanding resignations that I see everywhere in social media. It's one damn thing after another. But in the time left available to me, I need to turn to a matter which many of you will be ambivalent about, and I can understand that. And I have no dog in the fight, and if I did, it would be Nicola Sturgeon. because Alex Salmond is a far, far more formidable political adversary than Nicola Sturgeon. She is not of Alex Salmond's capabilities, his standing in politics in the country and beyond it. I spent decades in Parliament with Alex Salmond. I know his capacity. I ought to be delighted that his gas is at a very low peak these days. But I belong, for religious and moral and political reasons, to a school of thought that requires me to be indignant at any injustice done to anyone, whoever they are, and whoever dealt them that injustice. Whoever did it and whoever it was done to. And therefore, I have taken a very close interest in the attempted lynching of Alex Salmond, about which I have no scintilla of doubt, and never have had, as the published record will show. I said that Alex Salmond was being set up right from the very start. I said that he would be acquitted by a jury of his peers right from the very start. And I say now that the scandal of the setting up of Alex Salmond is matched only by the utter disgrace that the so-called Committee of Inquiry into the Salmond affair has become. Nicola Sturgeon promised full cooperation with that committee. She said so publicly. They will have all the documents that they require. She said publicly. But instead of cooperation, there has been endless obfuscation and obstruction. And instead of all the documents that they require, her government has steadfastly denied document after document after document to a duly constituted committee of the Scottish Parliament, whose remit is to investigate how it came to pass that Nicola Sturgeon's government lost the taxpayer in legal costs well over £500,000 in cash, and heaven knows how many hundreds of thousands of pounds in staff time and in their own legal costs to their own counsel in the disastrous court case in the Court of Session that they entered into with Alex Salmond. They will not even publish the legal advice that they themselves received about the likelihood of the outcome of that Court of Session case being negative for the government and disastrous for the taxpayer. This is a scandal that would do for any other government anywhere in the world. A British government would be brought down. A German government, a French government, any government in the world would be brought down by a conspiracy of leading figures in the governing party. A conspiracy brazenly exemplified by Peter Morell's WhatsApp messages in the hands of every journalist in Scotland now, and in the hands of the police and the Crown Office, who are taking their time about dealing with it. A conspiracy from not just leading figures. Peter Morell is the boss of the SNP. He's the husband of the party leader and First Minister Nicola Sturgeon. I think they're still together, at least. Forgive me if I've got that wrong. I don't take much interest in other people's marriages and relationships. But I hear a lot of things, much of which may well be rubbish. But if they are still a couple, a power couple, pretty damn powerful, the chief executive and the leader and the first minister all in the same bed, that's quite a double bed, that. That's quite a ménage à trois, that. Chief minister, party leader, chief executive. Although, of course, they don't talk to each other. Murrell didn't even know why Alex Salmond's fat arse was on his sofa in his own house on a Saturday night. Never asked. Because, of course, Nicola couldn't tell me. Because it was to do with our job. I'm only the chief executive of the SNP. I'm only her husband. It's my sofa in my living room. A conspiracy involving leading figures in a governing party to send their former leader and icon to prison for the rest of his life, and failing. Boy, that's a scandal. I could write a drama about that. Maybe I will, maybe I should. But what's happening about it? Who's being held accountable? Even the civil servants appearing in front of that committee are struck dumb. In some cases, literally, unprepared to answer questions of a committee of Parliament set up to investigate their failings and mistakes. Other times they can't remember. We're paying hundreds of thousands of pounds in salary to people that can't remember where they were and who else was there at highly significant political and governmental events. This is the mother of all scandals. And I'll tell you something. If I'm elected to the Scottish Parliament, I will go through this like a dose of salt. So don't bother shredding, because I'll have the best forensic investigators going through each and every one of your hard drives. We will open the books at Holyrood, even the dirty ones. We will open the hard drives. We will get to the bottom of what I firmly believe is not just a low-grade nationalist administration bent on the destruction of our country, bent on destroying something that took over 300 years to build. It's not just a collection of clowns, incompetents, not fit to go out for a loaf, not fit to run a whelk stall. It's not just that. It's corruption. It's potential crime. It's political and maybe legal corruption that we are talking about here. It's always the cover-up that does them in. Lastly, and I've gone over my time, forgive me. I'm 3 minutes over. I hope the editor, young James, will permit me one last observation. One of the most maddening things about this period is the lionization of this incompetent, nationalist, separatist, and corrupt administration by liberals and lefties in London, in England, and elsewhere. Their hatred of Brexit and their hatred of Boris Johnson are here today, gone tomorrow, maybe even tomorrow. The way things are going for him, here today, gone tomorrow. Prime Minister at Westminster is such that they're prepared to assist the destruction of our country, the partition of our country, just because they hate Brexit and hate Boris Johnson. The opinion poll at the weekend that put Labour ahead of the Conservatives, put Starmer ahead of Boris Johnson, doesn't much concern me except in this regard. It shows the transitory nature of parliamentary majorities in Westminster. It's not a good enough reason to partition your country, to break it up forever, because you don't like the guy that's the Prime Minister today, because he'll be gone tomorrow. And hey, Liberals, Nationalists, I'm still waiting for your endorsement of the turbulent scenes in Belgium today, where the Flemish nationalists were asserting their right to break up their country of Belgium. Take a close look at them. That's what nationalism looks like. And I'm going to ask you, how come you're prepared to support Scottish nationalism, but you wouldn't touch Flemish nationalism with a barge pole? Just think about that. Well, my friends will be here in my stead next week. Follow us, please. Sign our petition. Let's get Nicola Sturgeon out. Oh, last point. Sorry, forgive me. If, as I hear, the Holyrood elections are going to be postponed again in May, then the price of that is clear. The SNP will have to invite the leaders of the Conservative Party, the Labour Party, and the Liberal Democrats into the government. We'll have to have a government of national unity. We cannot have a minority SNP government going on and on and on, postponing election after election. That is unconscionable. And I wrote to the British government today to say this, that unless this government of national unity is formed by Nicola Sturgeon, if these elections have to be postponed, then Westminster should reinstate direct rule from Parliament at Westminster, because we cannot tolerate the endless vista of the SNP clown show continuing to run and wreck our country. Up with it, we will not put. Stay safe, stay alert, and may God be with you.